So the Pokemon Direct for January 9th just wrapped up, and it pretty much went over how I thought it would. A lot of rumors were circulating about this Pokemon Direct. Some people were thinking there could be some new information, maybe some Diamond and Pearl remake announcement, but one thing that a lot of people were thinking was maybe there's going to be some DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, if you remember in 2019, there was a lot of controversy when it came to Pokemon Sword and Shield for the Nintendo Switch. Some people felt that GameFreak lied about some things, that they were lazy about some things, but would GameFreak really come out and announce new DLC, including new Pokemon for Pokemon Sword and Shield during this Nintendo Direct? Well, yeah, they did, and now the Pokemon community is rather split on this, so I basically just want to recap briefly what happened during this Pokemon Direct and talk about why the internet and the Pokemon community in general is very split on this. Now, you guys know I'm a very casual Pokemon player, so I don't really have a dog in this fight, but I could see both sides of the coin with this. I could see why some people would be upset and why some people would maybe be more understanding towards it, so I want to look at both sides of the coin. But first, we were introduced to a new Pokemon game that is actually coming to the Nintendo Switch in March, but it's not really a new Pokemon game. It is a remake of a previous Pokemon game, and that is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Now, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon originally came out as a spin-off on the Game Boy Advance back in about 2005, 2006, I believe, and I remember this game wasn't really super well received, but now it looks like it will be getting a new breath of life on the Nintendo Switch when it comes out in March. Now, a demo will be available for this game later on today. I'll probably check it out because I remember playing these games back in the day, and I thought they were okay for a spin-off game. They were obviously a little bit different than a standard Pokemon game, more of an RPG style game, but I do think the art style might be a bit decisive when it comes to the Pokemon fan base as well, because it looks good, but I don't necessarily think it looks like a top-tier Nintendo Switch game. Now, obviously, graphics aren't everything. We've learned a lot when it comes to Game Freak about how they develop games. Game Freak, of course, has been used to developing games on weaker hardware, such as the Game Boy Advance, and the Nintendo DS and the 3DS. They never really embraced console gaming until things like Pokemon Sword and Shield, and that's where things started to really grow for the company as far as expanding their graphical knowledge. So I think the game looks clean enough. Some people might think it looks like a Flash game or something, you know, a bit cheap, especially when you look at things like Pokemon fan projects, but I think it looks fine, but I could see why some people would be upset with it and maybe just feel a bit let down by that. But of course, the big news during this Nintendo Direct for Pokemon was the fact that yes, Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield will be getting expansion passes, DLC, paid DLC, and that's where things, you know, that's where things kind of get off the rails. So the Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield expansion pass will be coming out in two different parts. There is the Isle of Armor, which will be available first and will be available by the end of June of 2020. There will be a second part that will be released in the fall called the Crown Tundra. Now, we have to talk about pricing with this, of course. If you just have Pokemon Sword or Pokemon Shield and you pick up the DLC, it will be $30. That will get you both parts of the DLC, the one that comes out in June and the one that comes out in the fall. However, a lot of people like to pick up both versions of Pokemon. Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield was actually sold in a dual pack as well. So if you want to get both DLCs, a DLC for Pokemon Sword and a DLC for Pokemon Shield, that will actually cost you twice as much because there are differences when it comes to the DLC on each version of the game. And that's kind of where the internet decided to lose its mind. Now, obviously, you're getting things like more wild areas with this, so I think people will enjoy that, you know, more areas to explore and more things to do, but of course there's going to be new Pokemon included, and this isn't just a few Pokemon. There's going to be over 200 Pokemon added between the two expansion passes, the one that releases in June and the one that releases in the fall. So you're getting up to 200 more plus Pokemon for Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. Now, they did go on to say, as you can see by the backdrop here, that you can get these Pokemon for free via trading if you don't want to get the expansion passes. But really, you're probably not going to find all 200 plus of these Pokemon available for trade very easily. So a lot of people are feeling like maybe there was cut content. A lot of people are feeling like maybe Game Freak did hold back and cut content from Pokemon Sword and Shield and is now adding it via DLC. Now, on one hand, I think it is good because you do see things like Pokemon's get, a third version of the game, an expanded version of the game that takes place within the same region, and then you're doing the same sort of things, but there are more Pokemon. We've seen that a lot on handhelds, so some people are like, well, this is good, this is additional content that will keep this game fresh for at least another year, and you have more Pokemon to go by, and you only have to pay $30 for it. Game Freak did say in the presentation as well that there would be free updates to Pokemon Sword and Shield that will give you some additional content as well. They did not go too deeply into that, but should you choose to not pick up these expansion passes, there will be some additional free updates done to Pokemon Sword and Shield that everyone will be able to enjoy. But there's still the other side of the coin that still feels a bit burned by what happened with Pokemon Sword and Shield and the lax amount of Pokemon versus other Pokemon games and things like that. And so to see an expansion pass be announced 2 months after the game has released is leaving a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. Now, they did also mention that Pokemon Home will be coming out in February as well, so you'll be able to transfer your Pokemon from the Galar region of games into your Pokemon Sword and Shield, should you choose to do so. I feel like that should have been available, a little bit earlier, maybe when the game actually came out. But people are upset. There's a lot of people upset. There's a lot of people split by this. And like I said, as a casual Pokemon fan, I could see both sides of the coin. I will say one of the strangest things about the Pokemon Direct, though, that happened today was the fact that there seemed to be some technical issues happening with this, which is weird because it's a pre-taped thing. The Isle of Armor trailer that was released, they didn't really show too much of the actual game. They showed a lot of concept art for this, but they looped that trailer twice, and people were like, why are they looping it twice? The end of the Pokemon Direct presentation cut off very abruptly as well, and it's like, this is a little bit half-assed. Like, let's be honest, this is obviously a pre-taped presentation. You had time to look at it before you hit go live on YouTube, yet you still kind of messed it up. But the Pokemon community is definitely very split on this whole thing, and as someone who is just as an outsider looking in, I could definitely see both sides of the coin. Was there content cut from the original game in order to suffice for this DLC? You'll never truly know the answer, and some people feel like this is an honest thing coming from Game Freak, but I can see why some people will be upset. I do think it is interesting, though, that they only really covered 3 topics of this, and really one of those topics was just sort of done in passing as well. Obviously, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon announcement for the Nintendo Switch was a big thing, and then they focused most of the other stuff on Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield DLC. They talked very briefly about Pokemon Home, and then that was it. Some people were expecting some updates on Pokemon Go and potentially Pokemon Sleep. Now, I'm not super interested in those things, but when you're doing a full-on Pokemon Direct, I think you would have thought there would have been a bit more substance to it, some more Pokemon-related information, instead of just talking about DLC. And maybe that's what's going to rub some people the wrong way, too. I would say 3/4 of the presentation was based strictly on DLC. Now, of course, the presentation is up on the Pokemon and the Nintendo YouTube channel, so if you want to check out the full presentation, I recommend you do that. Like I said, it's not very long. It's about 20 minutes long. It goes by pretty brisk, but if you want to see all the evolved forms of the Pokemon, the new Pokemon being added into the game from the Galar region, you might be interested in checking that out. But definitely a very interesting morning. I honestly didn't think Game Freak had the balls to come out and be like, hey, we're doing paid DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield after getting a good bit of heat for that game. But hey, you know what? It's capitalism. It's, all about trying to extend the life of these games. But will consumers be adaptive towards this? I think they will. I mean, look at how Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield ended up selling. The game is selling astronomically well. There is a very vocal crowd out there that is upset by things like this. But will it sort of show in the DLC pricing and the DLC packages and how many people pick up the DLC? I guess time will tell. But definitely a very interesting morning for the Pokemon community. But I want to know, where do you guys stand? Because I'm sure a lot of you guys are way more into Pokemon than I am. This is a franchise that, you know, I just sort of fell out of love with for whatever reason. I just sample it very casually. So what side of the fence are you on? Are you happy that they're getting additional content in Pokemon Sword and Shield, or do you think it's a bit disingenuous and maybe some of this content was cut from the original release of the game? Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below, and as always guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel. Yesterday we talked about some brand new arcade 1-up stuff that's coming out that I'm very excited for. I'm trying to figure out where the hell I'm gonna fit room. I mean, it's NBA Jam, for Christ's sakes. It's NBA Jam. And as always guys, be sure to check out the pinned comment in the comment section down below. We got merch, we got the 32X book, we got all sorts of ways to follow me on social media, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.